Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of our Monty Python Black Knight helmet series. So in part 1 we did modeling, part 2 we did the UV process, and in this video we're going to add some detail for our high poly in ZBrush, and then we're going to take it into Substance Painter for texturing. Alright, here we go. This video has been made possible by soloanimation.com. Hey everybody, and welcome to part 3 in our Black Knight helmet series. So in part 1 we did the modeling, part 2 we did the UVing, and this is basically where we left off. Okay. Now what I want to do next is take the model into ZBrush, make a copy so we can use that as our high poly, so we can use that later on when we do our texturing in Substance Painter. Right. Now, what I would normally do before I would export this out is I would make a color ID mask. So I have identifiers when I apply textures in Substance Painter for various materials. But in this case, I'm going to use one material for the entire model, so there's no need for that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this guy. Obviously, I deleted the history and froze the transformations, okay? So I'm going to go up to File, Export Selection, and I'll just save that out on my desktop. So let me see right here, and yeah, helmet series, let's call this low poly UV'd, why not? All right, okay, so that's now exported. Let's open up ZBrush. Here we go. Alright guys, here we are. What we're going to do is we're going to go to import, and I'm going to make sure that I have my desktop open, and we're going to go to the helmet series. We're going to select the model that we're going to use as our high poly model. I'm going to left click and drag, and I'm going to hold on shift to snap it. Click on edit and click on make polymesh 3D, and then I'm going to hit P on my keyboard to get perspective mode, because that is a personal preference that I have. And there you have it. Okay. Now, if we turn this guy on, we'll see the current line flow. And what I'm going to do here, as mentioned, is I'm going to go to geometry. Before I do that, let's rename this guy. So it's called, I'll just rename that to high poly model. Okay. So I'm going to go to geometry, and we're going to go in here, and let's start to add subdivision and see how far it deforms our model. It's not too bad. Like I said, we have some allowance there. We're at 216, 860. I'm looking up here, 3.4 million. I think if I do one more, it will jump somewhere up to 11 million, but I'm not sure. Wow, that's pretty high, but we'll make that work. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this off right here, and this is what I'm going to use to sculpt on. Now, as you can see, some roundness going on with the window here, and so, but I think it will be okay, right? Okay, so basically what I want to do now is just add some dents and scratches and whatnot. Okay, now let's see, we got some fairly distinct lines going on here, so I'm going to hold down shift and kind of smooth that out, and you can go in and right click and increase that size if you like. You can smooth that out. But I'm going to go into my brushes. I'm going to take my trim dynamic brush, and I'm going to right click and push this down a bit, and let's get in closer. And normally, of course, you take a lot of time doing this. That's a bit much. Let's hit Control Z to go back. Let's push that intensity down a bit. Still too much. Let's push that down, and maybe the draw size as well. Okay, so you really want to have some nicks and dents and whatnot on your model here. Okay, and I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on this. Basically, you should, though. I mean, if you're doing something like this, spend at least a couple of hours working on this to give the detail you like, right? For me, this is explaining the process, so it's not necessarily about the model, right? But just so you know that, okay? So I'm going to go in here and kind of beat up that edge a little bit. Maybe here too, just to break that surface just a bit, especially here. All right, let's see what we got. Starting to get some identifiers, if we want to call it that. Now we can go in here and change that to, let's say, spray, and then increase that draw size, which will kind of create little dents, I would say, but these are not little dents, they're too big. So let's go back and let's push that down a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So this is kind of dense that I was talking about. That's kind of neat because that's something that you would expect from battle, you know, just being beaten on. And I think it adds a lot of character to the helmet. So here too. Okay, well, you get the idea, right? So just take your time and spend maybe, you know, a couple of hours playing with this, dents and scratches and dings and whatnot, right? Until you're happy. So let's call this done. Like I said, just a few minutes, but nevertheless, there we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to export this guy, okay? So let's see, we're going to go to our subtool. It's selected, of course. Let's go to export. And I'm basically going to overwrite my high poly model. So we're just going to hit save. It's going to merge the UV chords. It's going to have to write the OBJ. So let's give it a sec, all right? Alright guys, well, we have our high poly model, for better or worse, simply because, like I said, quick and dirty, but it's all about the tutorial, not about this model, okay? Not for me anyway, for you it is. So it's time to go into Substance Painter, okay? Let's see what we got, and here we go. Okay, and here we are. So we're going to go up to File and New, and I'm going to select my low poly. So let's see, that's something else. We're going to go to our helmet series, take our low poly UV, there we go. Leave everything else alone, and just going to simply click OK. And that's going to bring in our model, as you can see. There you go, looks right. And now we need to do our initial bake, okay? As you can see, we got one texture set layer because I didn't do a color ID mask, but that's fine. We're going to be applying one material. So now we're going to go to Bake Textures, and here we're going to click on this little folder right there, and we're going to pull in our high poly model. I'm going to leave all of these checked right here. Now that will give me some errors, especially on vector coloring and whatnot, but we're just going to ignore that. It's not going to impact our model, okay? So we've got this selected, everything else leave that alone, and we're going to bake the initial textures. Here we go. All right, well, I think that turned out pretty good. I'm just going to go up here to View and Reset the User Interface to get rid of that and to get back to wherever we had. Looking at the model, it looks a lot less straight and clean. We got dents going on, and everything turned out quite okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, right? Okay, so the texturing bit from this point on is pretty straightforward because we got one texture set layer. So what I'm going to do is go to Materials right there, and we're going to select Steel. And in this case, we have Steel Rust. Okay, that's the one we're going to drag and drop. And there we go. And that will give us this. And here we have a couple of things to play with. So we're going to go into the settings here. And first of all, what I want to look at is color noise. When you bring that down or up, you see a little effect there. I'm going to keep that fairly low. The roughness of the metal is kind of important, so I don't want this to be too glossy, but I want some gloss, so let's do something like this. Surface imperfections. Well, this is a helmet, so let's bring that way up. We're going to add some dirt. We're going to add some contrast, which makes it nice and visible. The scale of the dirt is kind of up to you, but don't go too high because then it will look unrealistic. Rust intensity, that's one that kind of works, but you don't want it to be too rusty because this is a helmet that's in use, okay? So keep that fairly low. Now, because of that, we need to bring that gloss back a little bit. I would say. So we're going to play with that roughness again. Let's see here what we can do. Yeah, maybe something like this. And that's basically it, guys. So you can add all sorts of things to it, scratches and whatnot. I'll give you an example. So for example, we can go in here and there's an empty layer here, right? We're on that one texture set. Now I don't want to add color in this situation, so I'm going to turn off color, turn off metalness, and let's see, we'll leave height rough, we'll leave that all on. And if I now go in and draw something like this, and hopefully you can see it, not too much going on unless we tweak that height, and it'll go straight in. Okay, so that's basically what I want, not that much of course, so we can do a bit less. I'm going to change my brush to something like maybe scratches or something like that, or at least some yeah, we'll do something like this. We'll take that. Okay, so I'm gonna increase the brush size. There you go. Let's do a little test here. And as you can see, we get little nicks and scratches on our helmet. Don't go overboard with that. It's just, you know, it's been thrown and beaten, and you can even go in there, and if you like, you can play with the spacing. I mean, if you want them to be few and far apart, you can do that, just to beat that up a little. Okay, so we can go on and on, but you get the idea. So I'm happy with this. What we're going to do is we're going to go to mode and rendering. This is our helmet. Now I don't want this backdrop. I want the light of the backdrop, not the backdrop itself. So I'm going to go to dome, go to clear color, and let's go in here and make that fairly bright. Certainly not pink. That's okay. And then I want to rotate that environment a little bit. So let's see. We have environmental rotation. I want light coming basically from the front for the most part. Let's see what front. I think this is kind of cool. Yeah, we can rotate the model a little bit to get a little bit of the top as well. So I think this looks kind of cool, and then we'll increase the minimum samples a little bit. Let's see what else. And yeah, I would say that is basically it. So we're going to have this render out. Just wait until that's done, and then we'll call it a day. And there you go. So I'm going to go to save render, and let's see, we'll save that in our helmet series. Let's call this final render and save that out. And there you have it. That's the completion of our Monty Python helmet. If you have any questions, as always, let me know in the comments. And that said, thank you so much for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.